question is, what in the heck is the metaverse? And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, that is a big question. But if you try to understand a little bit of kind of the history of the internet and what's going on, the bottom line is the internet is moving towards a new phase in which information can be delivered in a virtual world. Web 1.0, which was introduced in the early 90s, was basically read-only. You could only log on and get information. You could not do anything with it other than potentially download it to a printer. Web 2.0 made the internet interactive, and that came about in 1995-96 when the web browser came into reality. And from that point on, it began to build on the whole idea of a live interactive internet experience where we could not only see the data, we could interact with the data, and that's really important. The next phase of the internet is going to be what we call Web 3.0, and it will serve as the foundation for creating new types of internet experience that includes viewing them in a virtual world on current devices through VR, MR, and AR headsets. And I'm looking at some technologies now that especially can be accelerated on the desktop and laptop and even a smartphone where you can have more AR type experiences. Apple's already shown that through the iPad and the iPhone using apps from their ARKit architecture, and the Android phones and Android OS is doing something similar. But you know, I believe that even PCs at some point will have the ability to have 3D level functionality, maybe another 5 to 7 years out. But I think that the PC itself can evolve to becoming a vehicle for delivering quote unquote metaverse content. The next slide. But let's be really clear on something. Even though this term is being flushed around, it is a work in progress. We believe it will revolutionize the world of information and will be at the heart of the next phase of the internet. Simply put, it will allow people to learn, work, and play in new dimensions of information delivery that include 3D, virtual interaction in immersive environments, and make the internet multidimensional. Now, I come from the tech side. My customers have been all the tech companies, the semiconductor companies, the computer makers, the guys that create the smartphones. And I've not seen them as excited about this a new phase since the early days of the web. The web itself and interactive technology really expanded the internet's functions beyond what it was in the early days to where it could be an actual business tool. And we believe that everything is driving in the direction that even though metaverse and its definition is fluid, as Barton said, and we're in this early phase, it will be a major and have a major impact on not only the technology, world of technology, but I believe the entire business process. And that's why we're here today, to share with you some of the early thoughts we've been researching and looking at to develop what in essence is somewhat of a strategy to start thinking about this.
Tim, let me ask you a question. Metaverse. Meta decides to invest $10 billion to focus on the metaverse. Apple has goggles coming out in 2024. Should we be, I've kind of focused in my writing, and I see a little bit on yours too, on using the metaverse just because it's a term that people kind of can relate to. As you put in, you know, XR, VR, AR, or MR, they're kind of like, you know, they think it's more of a techie term. But virtual world is another good way to look at it. Is it okay to use metaverse?
Well, it is partially because it's a buzzword, and I think everybody's already got it in their mental vocabulary. However, if you actually see the word metaverse and immediately think about virtual world. So, for example, if you have ever played any of the games from Xbox or you know, any of the other types of console games or even PC games, you already are in a virtual world. You're shooting people in a virtual world, or you're traveling in a virtual world. However, all of that today has been mostly 2D. When you put on now the new goggles that say Meta has, the Quest goggles and the HoloLens goggles, etc., that now elevates the experience to a 3D immersive world. And that's what we're starting to move towards. Not a 2D virtual world, but a 3D virtual world. And that's where it will evolve. Now, again, it's still in its infancy, it's still fluid, but as we have been studying this I have especially for over 10 years, and we're going to give you examples of companies that are already doing this, I think it's really imperative that individual companies now, no matter where they are in their business processes, need to, one, start thinking about it. And I wrote a piece for Forbes recently where I point out that you really need to probably have a principal investigator whose role is to try to figure out how you as a company or your company can participate in the metaverse over the next few years.